There's so many different ways and avenues to get these things accomplished within nonprofits these days. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing, zero-sum game. You're able to be flexible and nimble and find things. And that is where, to me, nonprofits do operate a whole lot like entrepreneurial endeavors where, we're going to need to change. We're going to need to be as nimble as we possibly can.
Speaking of how our brain works with this affliction called entrepreneurship, and I'm not big on labels and stuff, Leya, but when I think about it now, I don't think so much about like risk aversion, or risk taking. I think about curiosity.
A good reframe.
And you know what I mean, right? And you obviously have it, and most do. And another thing is, hey, it's kind of like running a nonprofit, or it's kind of like raising. It's not easy, right? It's like,
and you're going to learn on the fly, for sure.
You're going to learn on the fly. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of responsibility. You have to have a great team around you and be willing to accept, and all these lovely. And it's such a noble enterprise starting a company too. You know what I mean?
It is.
It really, really is. It can be such a beautiful thing. I want to get into it, but it's a great origin story. But what's cool is like, it sounds like it was born out of necessity because you like, okay, we got a problem here. We got to fix it. We got to we got to come.
That's how it felt to me. It was like a chicken or the egg, right? Like I needed the tech so I could raise the money, but I couldn't get the tech because I didn't have the money. So like there was a disconnect that I couldn't surpass. And that's why, our core platform is still really relatively quite cheap. And we're told this all the time. And sometimes my sales team complains to me about it. But it's very important to me that there's a component part of Better Unite that remains as accessible as we can possibly make it.
I love that. I think it's smart. And I think, hey, if it's easy for folks to say yes, it's like removing the friction. I think that's a great place to be in.
Salespeople love that too. Yeah.
I want to talk. I'm fascinated by this because I think about it often, but I don't get the opportunity to speak to folks that are so focused on, it's a buzz term, but it doesn't mean that it's not heavily weighted, but like just the self-care piece. When I started in the space and we started our company, lot was going on. There's a lot going on. Life inevitably happens. Loss, health, all of these things. And luckily for me, I've always had like endurance exercise. I come from like an endurance background.
Yeah, cool.
Not like one, a one. And so
very specifically that.
Yeah. I mean, like I just find the more I train, regardless of how painful it is, the better I feel. And I'm so grateful that, to the point where things started really moving with the company. And I was like, you know what? I write every day. I was like, I need to write this down. And I need to think about these things and think about what it means to me. Not necessarily to publish one day. I really want to put it out there, right? But I started writing just rules that applied to business, but it was a nice weaving of like my personal life as well. And my first rule was, it sounds like it's got a business tenet to it, but it's like, be kind to everyone. Yeah. Because you really never know who you're talking to, right? Yeah. If someone's cross with you, okay, you don't have to continue talking to them, but be nice to everyone. And then the caveat was, especially yourself, because you cannot give what you do not have.
100%.
And I mean, has it always been that important to you? I know it's really, really, really important in our space. I understand the burnout piece and the turnover piece and all of this stuff and the people exercise involved. But I mean, talk about that and this, like how that got so ingrained in you and how it's evolving over time, if you don't mind.
So oversharing is my superpower. I'll warn you right now.
Yeah, far out.
I have a closet full of skeletons, but the door's wide open. So I started doing yoga and practicing mindfulness right after I had my kids. And so my oldest son is now 25. So 25 years ago, and it came from children. I became really interested in, nutrition and how could I provide like the right environment for my kids. I was super young as a mom. I convinced daily they would die. And so I think I kind of got into all of it to, maybe calm myself down. I don't really know, right? There was no linear, I didn't do any of it on purpose, but but that's what got me started on kind of a wellness journey. And then candidly, I think honestly, I I had a very strong yoga practice in this lineage called Ashtanga, for anybody that knows what that is. It's really like a 6 a.m. every day, same poses over and over again, really strenuous, really kind of gymnastics like. And it's very different from my personality. Like, I'm not, typically that kind of structured, really rigid type person. But what I realize now, looking, in hindsight, is that it was keeping me sober. So I am just under 12 years in long-term recovery from alcoholism.
Okay.
And I can see now that practice kept me sober until it couldn't. And so 12 years ago, I went to treatment, and I am proudly a sober woman since then. And so what I will always say is that self-care is not an option for me.
Yeah.
My life depends on it, and it depends on a variety of things, including I practice a 12-step program. I have a wonderful and very important community of female, both advisors and friends that help me get me through basically everything that I go through. And they're, have vast experience in business and also in long-term recovery and also in life, just on life terms.
Yeah.
And then the yoga component, as after I moved into recovery, a couple of years later, I became interested. It was always something that was really fascinating to me, and I became interested in studying it a little bit more deeply. So, for me, my teaching yoga and the more mindful component of it,
Mhm.
more, I guess I would say, like the trauma informed, the teaching piece of it, that all came after recovery for me. But then I was learning both at the same time in a way that they conflated in my head and my experience. So,
Mhm.
so I really I just think of them as tools in my toolkit I get to pull out, and they, help me, give me the ability to manage whatever is coming at me.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned, life happens, minor and major traumas come along, and
Yeah.
I'm able to navigate it with all of those tools. So it's very, very important to me, very dear. My life depends on it.
I thank you. I'm so fascinated with that on so many levels. Um, Fathers, alcoholic.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah. I've known people that have and I've become very, very close with folks in recovery on a personal level. And then a lot of what's interesting is I became very, very close with someone who went to prison and who was someone that has passed, because I mentioned loss, someone that passed in my life that was really, really close to me, that I really looked up to as like a father figure, and he was talking about it, and I know you could lend some insight to this as well, where he said, hey, listen, I went in high, and I came out and I found that I had to fill up every hour of every day with something.
100%.
I was at the gym. I was mentoring others. I'm taking turns here and stuff. But Leah's like, there's so much power. It sounds like without understanding every step, precisely of the 12-step program. There's something really, really beautiful, and I want you to speak to about like what you get out of helping others and being available for others.
Yeah, well, in order to keep it, you have to give it away. It's a tenet of
Yeah,
the 12-step program.
yeah,
All of them. There are a multitude, but they all have the same 12 steps and many, many of the same characteristics. And there's, that me seeing other people come into recovery, fall out of it, come
yeah,
back, fall out of it again, come back,
mhm,
thrive, sometimes not make it, sometimes fall victim to it. Those are the things that keep me sober. And the other really, really powerful piece I find in moving in communities of people in recovery, is the daily presence of effort, right? It doesn't go away. As a matter of fact, I had a sponsor who said we could call it remission, really, rather
yeah.
than recovery, because recovery almost sounds like, well, it's done. You finished, you're good.
It's
Now
over.
you're
Yeah, there's
good,
a finish
which we
line.
wish,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
wish would happen. But
yeah.
that's not the truth. The truth is I was given a reprieve, a daily reprieve. And you'll talk to a lot of old timers that will say, won't tell you how long they've been sober. They're like, well, I haven't drank today. And so that's it's the only chance you really have is to kind of stay in the center, keep practicing all of those principles in all of your affairs. I mean, recovery has informed my business ethos in so many ways.
Yeah.
And then to talk to mentor. I hate even the word mentor. I don't really feel like the mentor doesn't fit me naturally, really,
I
in
understand.
any
I understand.
capacity.
Yeah.
But I do work and do my best to be as giving as I can to anybody that is in need of help. And my first thing that I'll always say to anybody that is related to or with somebody or watching someone struggle with a substance use disorder is you have to take care of yourself. This is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And that person being healthy is the only chance the other person has to get healthy as well.
I think that because you said the label of mentor, I understand it gets thrown around there a lot. I think you and I have a lot in common because I'm very uncomfortable and like self-deprecating when people look to me that way. But I think when you reach a point in your life like you have, I think it comes naturally that people are going to want you to mentor them, frankly, for lack of a better explanation, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Like I said, though, it's like there's this natural piece of us where it's like we're self-deprecating.
Yeah.
Even though we're doing it.
I'm in
You know
it.
what I mean?
That's what I can tell you. I am
Yeah,
in it 100%,
yeah,
fully learning new stuff every day, somewhat terrified every day.
yeah.
Here we go.
I'm very, very grateful for you sharing. I want to, and I am, as I mentioned to you, and I'm exceptionally fascinated with the entire thing because it's I've witnessed so much, and I know you have too. You said something really, really cool about how it's informed you as a leader, and you're in a leadership role. Naturally, you are a leader. I know you well enough to know that. How has that journey and what you've learned, and pouring into others and helping others, how has that helped you as CEO and being a leader with so many people looking to you and depending on you, and like what have you learned? Whether it's recent or long term or all the above.
I know.
Yeah.
Right. This was not a goal. I didn't say, I will set out to do this thing.
Yeah.
It feels more like it happened to me, but I love working. I love Better Unite. I just truly love the work. I really do. I love the work of nonprofits. I love what they do. I love this team that we are building and have built so far. And I think I'm making this up as I'm saying it because I don't
Yeah.
really haven't looked back at this, but I try my best to show up as authentically as I can. I
Yeah.
really, when you do those assessments, the personality assessments, and it makes
Yeah.
you list what are your, core values or core beliefs or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know the word that other people would use, but the word that rings true for me is authenticity. Like, am I who I am over here as well as over here? And is there a thread through them? And so I work really hard to be that way, to not show up on this podcast or another webinar as a different version of Leya. That's why I think, like I said, I'm oversharing all the time because it doesn't feel that way to me. It just feels like being authentic. It feels like being who I am.
You're
And
being
so
you. You're being
yeah,
true to yourself. You're being
yeah,
you.
I really I don't have
Yeah.
another speed,
Yeah.
and I do find that that I want to trust everybody. And then once that trust is broken, I'll have a hard time coming back, So I do move at the speed of trust too, because I'm such an open book kind of person that's truly just factory settings. I didn't choose that. But the authenticity for me is really important as a leader. I also feel strong, and I felt this way when I was, had an art gallery. If I wasn't willing to clean the toilets, I'm not going to ask somebody else to do it. So I really do believe in that. Somebody told me this the other day. I didn't even know it had a term, but someone's like, they've written books about it. But the servant leader,
Yeah.
I like that concept, and I think what I've excelled at, actually, again, didn't really know this was going to be true, but is hiring people that are curious, that are energetic, that are, interested, and then giving them a much bigger job than they maybe are qualified for, because that's what happened to me. That's how I felt, right? I didn't feel qualified to be the CEO of Better
Yeah.
Unite. I just had a problem, and then I had a cool technology solution to it. And so I you kind of get qualified along the way. And so now I see myself putting other people in that position, and they rise to it. They've really risen to it. And that's so cool to watch and be a part of. And so I think that those would be some of the guiding principles that, again, not setting out to know or to do or to act upon, but to have happened into.
Well, it's palpable because I've had the good fortune of meeting some of your team too.
They're great, aren't they?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that this gets thrown around a bit too, where you've empowered them.
I hope so. I really hope so.
Yeah. Well, no, I think I know you have. And it's really cool. We've done the same at our company. And I find myself now going, oh my goodness, I never thought in a million years this is where we would find ourselves, because it's that beautiful, right? And now that we're like, over 20 people, and we're going through things in life together, good, bad. We're accepting grandchildren into the family and stuff like that. Like,
I
it's
know,
like,
right?
holy shit, man, this is cool, right? Like,
it becomes a big extended family. It just does. I mean, and maybe that's not the way it's supposed to go, or but that is what I'm experiencing. It sounds the same for you. So thank you for sharing that with me, because it makes me feel better.
Oh yeah, I don't know any other way. I mean, our first employee, my business partner Jason, is my best friend. Our first employee, patient zero, was my sister, and it's like, it's like. And I call her patient zero, right? But and it's so darn cool now, where we actually have families not related to us all working on the team,
right? Awesome.
And it's so amazing to watch people flourish in that way. Now I find myself going just purposely getting out of the way.
Yeah, 100%.
And
that's where that servant mentality, like, just tell me what you need. I'm here to support you and boost you, and and it's all for the good of the company. So here, let's go, right? Like, you lead the way.
What is missing in the sector that we serve, where so many shops are missing that? I know it's not like a very short answer, but just give me some opinions and thoughts and experience of what you've seen and what you're seeing in real time with why is that missing in our space?
I think I actually have an answer. I mean, it's an opinion, but it's my opinion is that I don't think we let leaders be leaders in nonprofit world a lot of times, because a nonprofit board is filled with, of course, do-gooders, of course, big-hearted people that are, givers, but they're also business people, and they all come with their own set of, rules or the way this is how it should be done or whatever. And then and they're also typically very large donors to the organization. So then whomever is in the seat of the leader, the executive director or CEO or whatever, absent being a really strong leader from the jump in the first place. And I have seen this work, right, where that person just takes the reins and then it works. But I think what happens a lot of the time is they end up being, somebody said this the other day. I feel like maybe it was you. Somebody talked about, a camel was a committee designing a horse. So like it ends up being this.
Yeah.
Did you say that to me?
That's so good. No, that wasn't me, but it's good.
Well, someone said that. But that's how boards can operate in some circumstances, right? Like there's just all these people in the room, a bunch of voices in the room, and then the thing that needs to get done doesn't end up getting done. And in enterprise world, in for-profit world, yes, there will be boards, but there's always a strong leader at the helm, and that board is secondary to the strong leader. So, or they just have the fiduciary responsibility as opposed to the running of the actual program. And just, I think too often we end up relying on boards to, in my case included, right? Community Yoga Austin, where we had a board that really ran everything. We didn't have any staff running it. And then I'll be honest that I ended my tenure there by merging Community Yoga Austin with a different nonprofit. That's another thing that I think is a bit missing in our sector, is more M&A could really be used in that. There's probably far too many nonprofits with duplicative efforts, and there's no incentive to bring them together. And often there's egos that get in the way and all of that stuff. So, those are two things that I see where there's a real differentiation between the way that a for-profit company would work versus the way that nonprofit companies often work.
It's so good that you bring up that point. I'm going to bookmark that just for a quick second because I'm not the one that said the camel thing. I'm the one that said, why are you walking on eggshells around your board?
Yeah, right.
And you're like you said, it's like leaders are not allowed to lead.
Yeah.
And that's a distinct issue, all right, in our space. And my partner, I'm paraphrasing, but he's like, hey, a board's got 3 jobs. 1, hire and fire the CEO ED. Okay, cool. You like the CEO ED? Cool. All right. Well, that one's out of the way for right now, right? The other thing is, hey, we got to have our eyes on the books. Oversight, great. Okay, how's the books looking? Everyone approved the budget? Okay, cool. Boom. And then the third part, get out of the way of the CEO and the ED and help them fundraise. It's like the triumvirate. It's like, that's it. It's like,
I mean, again, boards should be serving the leader. They should be only fundraising and not turning to the leader and saying, how are you going to get, XYZ dollars at our next event, gala, whatever. The leader should be turning to the board saying, how are you going to get XYZ dollars? Because you're the one that needs to be bringing the people to the table.
So good. God, really, really good.
Like I can tell I have a little baggage here. I am on 2 boards right now, though. And so I see it work well. So as I've seen the opposite as well. So I'm not saying this happens all the time. I just do think that it happens enough that it has become a systemic problem.
Well, let's talk about that then, because if you're on 2 boards and you're seeing it work in real time, so what are you seeing happen? Are you seeing not difficult conversations, but just conversations happen early and often with expectations like this is how it's going to go, and you have so much experience, people are leaning on you, and you're like, let's just get out of the way and help these folks.
Yep.
Is that it?
I'm very, so one of the boards I'm on right now, we had to let go of a CEO or executive director, and there's a search looking for another one. And then we're talking about fundraising, and I'm like, and we need a development director, because it's very difficult for an executive director to do all of the things of managing and running a nonprofit and also be the only person tasked with bringing in the money absent the board. And then your board is also kind of in there a bit too much, right? So I really do believe, and I'm not saying that it can't be a contractor, it can't be an agency, consultants that you bring in, especially, in the near term, if funds are tight. There's so many different ways and avenues to get these things accomplished within nonprofits these days. It doesn't have to be an all or nothing, zero sum game. You're able to be flexible and nimble and find things. And that is where, to me, nonprofits do operate a whole lot like entrepreneurial endeavors, where we're going to need to change. We're going to need to be as nimble as we possibly can. And so I do think that when a board does a good job hiring, and even if they don't, they fire fast, right? Hire slow, fire fast. Then you have the ability to then tee up that leader to lead, and know going into it that you are, what you're hiring. Are you, do you need a seasoned nonprofit professional, or do you need a young person that's really going to just come in and like go for it, and you roll the dice on that? And I mean, I think both answers are fine. It's just make a decision and then get out of their way. Let them do that work.
Yeah, I love that you said that. I love the bookmark piece that you brought up, which was really clever, by the way. It's like, we're like, why don't we have that M&A mentality with like organizations that are serving the same purpose? There's an issue. There's like a stopgap with collaboration in the space, right? That's why I relish the opportunity to talk to you and collaborate with you, and you know what I mean? Like,
because we do all the time as for-profit companies, we integrate, we work together, we share partnerships, we co-sell together, we do these things. It's just the way that business gets done. But nonprofits don't typically think that way.
Yeah, and the thing I see getting in folks' way is like, well, we've never done it that way, so it's just us having this conversation.
My least favorite words.
Yeah, as one factor is like, we've always, we need to have these conversations. Another one is like a couple of things like, hey, you don't own your donors. You know what I mean? There's like this big issue with like, well, no, they can, like, folks can give to multiple missions. Like, it's really okay. Yeah. Why don't you figure out what works for them and like have a cup of coffee with the ED at the shop down the street? Like, I don't understand what like just stops people from that. I don't get it. It's very interesting to watch, and I'm very interested and enamored with the idea of having the conversation to help fix it. Hopefully,
I see some entities. I've seen actually I can't remember what it was. There was some tech before that was like a kind of matchmaking pairing. And I don't think it lasted. But I live in Austin. There's Austin Together is I don't even know if it's an alliance, but they do at least once yearly uh, conference. I think it's really a conference,
Yeah.
and they kind of bring all of the nonprofits that they can really get together to share stories, to talk about, efficiencies, to really facilitate dialogue between nonprofits working in the same geographic location. They
Yeah.
might not necessarily be in the same, vertical as far as what their mission is, but I hope and I think that there's a lot of opportunity. And again, as government pulls back and provides less to our, communities, there will be and is and has been for a long time, but now even more, a turning to the nonprofit organizations. And so we really as an industry need to step up and step into this moment so that we can provide the best service to our different communities and collectives. So I love that there are some people speaking to this, and there are some people making some efforts. I definitely think there could be a lot more.
Yeah. We just got to keep shining a light on it, make it cool again.
As always, we need to someone get on TikTok right now.
Come on, let's make it cool. I'm gonna hit you with some random stuff. Not too far of a left turn, but like I love hearing about your experience, your background, and where you're at now and what you're doing to help serve others. And so, what are you? Because you're a leader, and I know a lot of leaders, a lot of development leaders, CEOs, EDs, founders are going to be hearing the pod and stuff. What are you consuming? I'm a big believer in what we bring in. Do you like when it's your free time? Are you like reading a lot of books? If so, what are they? Are you listening to pods? If so, tell the audience and me which ones. Are you spending a lot of time writing? You seem like a very grateful person. Are you spending time talking, writing down and talking to folks about that kind of stuff? Just give me some feedback about that if you don't mind.
No, not at all. So I'm not so much of a social media person. I don't do like phone games or video games. My kids always think that's weird. I don't. This has never been my thing. I love reading books, actual books, not from
Okay.
Kindles. I guess it was last year, I was referring somebody else to them. I read two wonderful books by Hernan Diaz. One is called In the Distance and another called Trust. When we were talking about trust earlier. I think he's a magnificent writer. So I love, love, love to read fiction. And I
Okay,
left it
cool.
for a while. It's a great love of mine, like a
Yeah.
lifelong love, since I
Yeah.
was maybe 7. And when Better Unite was just getting up and going, and I had this young kid, and I had 2 kids in early college or late high school, I didn't think I had time, right? But we make time. It's just like, show me your budget, I'll tell you your priorities. Like, show me what you're doing, and I'll tell you, what it is that you need. And so I came back this year. It was a very specific and intentional New Year's resolution to start reading fiction again. So Hernan Diaz, really big fan. I just read a book called In the Woods.
Okay.
In the Woods? Into the
Sure.
Woods? I can't think of the author, but it was really good. I think it's on like a short list for the Pulitzer or something like that. It's really wonderful.
Wow.
And
Cool.
I go back to some favorite authors like Orhan Pamuk. And actually, I was thinking of you I was thinking of this author when you were talking about writing, rules related to endurance
Yeah.
sports. I don't know if you know Haruki Murakami, but it's a wonderful short little book called What I Write About When I Write About Running. And he's this amazing author. He did win the Pulitzer for 1Q84, which is like one of my favorite books of all time. And then he wrote this little teeny tiny book about running. And it was I'm not a runner, but I loved it. And it made me want to run, honestly.
Wow.
And it's a really cool book. So you should take a look at that. And that one is not fiction, but it's written by a novelist. So I count it.
I love it. No, I'm definitely.
And then
I'm definitely
sorry, what?
No, I'm definitely into it. I'll definitely check it out. Yeah,
You
I'm into
should
that.
really read that one. Like, definitely, like, don't stop. Don't pass go.
Okay.
Go get that one. Podcasts, I listen to Prof G Markets. I really like a guy, Scott Galloway. I like his take on a lot of stuff. And he has
Scott Galloway. Yeah.
I really enjoy, I think he's funny and irreverent a bit, and also just spot on in a lot of the ways that he approaches business, as well as life in general. I think
Speaks to young men. Speaks to a lot of
he
young
speaks
men
to young
very
men. So I have
eloquently.
three
Yeah.
sons, four
Yeah.
sons with my stepson, and so I'm
Yeah.
very interested in that topic as well. And I've watched them grow up in this digital generation and made plenty of mistakes on my older kids that I'm trying to and probably overcorrecting with the younger one. But
Yeah.
it's just an interesting time to be a parent, frankly. It's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah. Good call. Good call.
So I really like those podcasts. What else did you ask me? What can else?
Oh no, that was great. I just want to see. Yeah, just I'm interested in what people consume. You know what I
Consume.
mean?
Yep.
Yeah, almost like also it's like, yeah, when you're shutting off your mind, so to speak, right? You know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like, what do you know, for like, I almost view like pods sometimes, like I'll get on the bike, and I'll listen to a pod as almost kind of like escapism, if you will,
Oh,
right?
totally.
You know?
I don't work out to podcasts as much. I do.
Sure.
I love music.
Yeah, me too.
I'm a big, and because I teach yoga, so I create playlists for my yoga classes. So I'm always like letting Spotify's algorithm pick new music for me. But then I have some really good ones for because I'm a woman that's 50. So now we all have to lift weights and have creatine and all kinds of protein. And I should quit my job in order to do all the stuff that I'm supposed to do. But I do my best and I do lift weights in my garage. And when I do that, I listen to a lot of like Kendrick Lamar
Yeah.
and Beyonce and all kinds of fun stuff. So I really like music. In my car, I'll listen to a podcast from time to time. But if I'm really needing to decompress, it's just music.
I don't know. You're an art, you have obviously a very heavy art background.
Mm-hmm.
And it's my favorite artistic expression is music.
Yeah.
And music's always going at my house and in my head, and I seek out music. And it's amazing how I had a recent moment where it's the only art form that's ever made me have chills. You know what I mean? And and for me, it's nostalgic. When I hear songs, and particular artists, it will bring me back. Kind of like smells do. You know what I mean? With,
Yep.
Recurring thoughts and whatnot from your past. But music always does that to me. And I had the good fortune, so I'm born in 1980 and got into music my parents were kind of hippies, so it's like Dark Side of the Moon on vinyls playing, in the morning and stuff like that. But no, we just saw Paul Simon play this last weekend, and it was like I wore out the Graceland cassette tape, one of his out, when I was a kid in my Walkman, and so I got to hear him play Graceland in person, and I'm like with my wife, and I'm like, oh my God, like I was like almost, in tears, right? But I'm interested, especially with the leadership piece, Leah, where it's like there's so much coming at you. I saw a therapist a while back, and she said, it's good that you have like your outlets and stuff like that. I just want to let you know, though, you move very, very quickly. And she said, just think about it like plumbing. She said, your plumbing coming in, just so you know, it's a pipe, if you will. Think of it that way. It's never going to match what's going out, just so you know. You know what I mean? So it's like, if you got some music, if you can go quiet your mind and go run in the hills, you do that and do it often, that kind of thing. So I'm very interested in hearing people's other approaches. I had a really cool conversation with a lady. I did some blood panels, and she was super duper sweet and ran her own company, and we got to talking, of course, as we do, right?
Yeah.
Because I can't shut up, and I'm an oversharer as well. I'm trying to become an over listener.
There you go. That would be better.
Yeah, I'm trying to be a better listener. It's a definitely a work in progress. I'm a 4 right now, but I started very, very at a 1. But no, we were talking about, and she was asking me what I do. What I found myself doing was, as everything comes in, so much like a fire hose, right? When you're building things and kids and all these spouses and friends and all these things, is life inevitably. I found myself leaving my phone for like 30 minutes if I could and going for a run. And I found myself writing down every thought that I could recount when I got back. And that ended up being like a really, really cool. Actually, I haven't shared this with very many people. I definitely don't think I've shared it on air. It was really, really good, Leah. And what was interesting because I've had like sleepless nights, you don't get payroll and
For
stuff like
sure.
that. And, if you're a nonprofit leader, you have the same thing. You still got to make payroll and serve the mission. So it's no different. Being a nonprofit or a for-profit, the way I look at it, I know you and
Yep.
I agree with that. I found the one thing that I wrote, now I could go back to where I wrote it and look at it, over time, the catalog. But what was interesting was the one thing I really, really remember was like, the more people that have entered my life that depend on me, the better my life has gotten.
That's profound.
It
That's
was
a,
interesting. It kind of let the hooks out a little bit. And
yeah.
it only happened when I went out by myself
Mm.
deliberately. I didn't invite my wife, who I adore walking with and moving about outside with. And I wrote that down. I wrote down, what my dream car might be, or stuff like that. but I did write down when I was feeling pressure at like some growth stages. I found myself going, yeah, but God, my life has gotten so good. The more people have entered it that truly depend on me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. Yeah, I don't know what the point was, but yeah, that was it.
I mean, those self-care practices that have identified and alluded to. I actually don't do much writing today. I love to write, sort of. Like, I don't like to do it under fire, but
Sure,
I
sure.
enjoy, freestyle writing from time to time. And definitely in early recovery, I did a ton of writing and reflecting and actually like moving your hand, right, instead of but
Yeah,
doing this on a computer. But the writing process was so helpful and so therapeutic. I kept journals for years. But any of those things that you find that are a valve release are wonderful. So Anne Lamott is another writer that I really love reading her books, and they're typically nonfiction. They're not typically fiction. But she has this great quote that I'm gonna mangle, but it's something to the effect of everything works better after you unplug it, including you. And
yeah,
so when you were talking about that, that made me think of that, and I think that's probably a part of my, reading an actual book at night
yeah,
before I go to bed, is that it's not a screen. It's nothing that that I've been responding to. It's just consuming. It's just a place I can lose myself, and a physical, tangible thing that I get to hold, that
yeah.
I've been doing since I was a child. So there's just comfort
I
in
love
all
it.
of those things.
I was a voracious reader as a child, and I was really deep into fiction as well. So we share that.
Yeah.
And I get in and out, and I'm reading the Almanac of Naval Ravikant for the second time right now, which is
I don't know that
really
book.
good, really, really good. Um, uh, but yeah, there's other books that I give away a lot. I find myself. Do you give
Yeah,
away a lot of books?
I do actually.
Yeah,
I do. Viktor Frankl, the
yeah,
man's search for meaning. I
yes,
give that one
yes,
away a lot, and that one's a lot around gratitude and
yeah,
and finding space.
yeah.
I'll give away Hemingway's A Movable Feast, the last book he
Okay,
ever wrote. I love that
okay,
book, and I love to give it to folks.
yeah.
A couple of others I can't really think of right now. Yeah.
I'm a big fan of The Old Man and the Sea. I don't know why. I love
Oh,
that
so
one. I've read
good.
it multiple times. Yeah. Yeah. The first, it's so funny when you said fiction, I was like, gosh, remember when, and I just loved the Chronicles of Narnia. I read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe like 10 times. I just
Oh
loved it.
my
It was like
gosh.
it was my thing. It was like a
Mine was
warm,
A Wrinkle in Time, Madeline
uh,
L'Engle. I read
uh,
that so many times as a
I
kid.
love that. I love that. Back to like we were talking about these writing things down and stuff, and it's not for everybody. It doesn't need to be. I find putting pen to paper daily is very cathartic.
There's a
And
lot of
just
research around that too, that it's
yeah,
really
I'm not
a
that guy to
healthy
purport
practice.
that, but I do see a lot of value in it. Like I said, you know what I also noticed too, though, Leah, is we can be really hard on ourselves,
Mm.
and they call it like gratitude stuff with journals and stuff like that too. Like, but like even like writing down what's going well
Yeah,
is can be very cathartic and uplifting. And I keep saying this, like it lets the hooks out a little bit,
100%.
Um, yeah, in a good way. Yeah,
Never, nothing is ever as good or as bad as it seems, right? So
true
when
story.
you put that down on a piece of paper and you read it back to yourself, I think that shines through. That typically, whatever you thought was really great or really terrible, those are all judgments. It's a thing.
Yeah,
It's what it is, and you
yeah.
can peel some of that away sometimes when you write it down. You're making me think about how I need to begin this practice again.
Oh, yeah. I'm really enjoying this conversation, so I appreciate
Me too.
you. I appreciate what you all are doing in the space as well. and you know this because you've been a fundraiser. You are still. I still consider us to be fundraisers.
Sure.
I have something that I ask every guest, just about darn near every guest. It's an accepted premise that fundraising is hard. It's supposed to be. Most worthwhile things are. And so the question is, as long as we agree, and you don't have to, but fun. Leah, I say fundraising is hard. Don't make it more difficult by doing what?
I would say by subverting yourself. Like,
Explain.
consider yourself the person making the ask a part of the equation, because you're an important part of the equation. And I think a lot of times people try to, make their donor the hero, which is good. That's a great frame. Or the organization the hero, but people give to people. And so I think for nonprofits, when they're thinking about their storytelling or their narratives or what they're going to say at their event or their gala or even online, a lot of times the person doing the asking doesn't really consider themselves a piece of that, and they very much are. That's just human psychology. Whomever is you're speaking with is a huge and influential piece of whatever it is that you're being asked to do or deciding to do. So that circles right back around to a better conference, which is the people that are doing the work of the nonprofits. It's just all about people. It's really a collective. And honestly, that's why I love events so much. And I know a lot of nonprofit consultants will shy away from events and, poo-poo them, and they're a lot of work, and, they don't raise as much money as you think. But it's like this magical time that we get to come together as people that have a common purpose, supporting this organization, and we, lift each other up. We commiserate, maybe, whatever it is. We're together, and so much of you keep talking about today, and I totally think it's true. What comes in is so important, and there's just nonstop nonsense coming at us all day, all the time. Content overload ad nauseum. And when we can be in person and in relational space with each other, it's just this. It's really magical. And so I think that the human being behind the ask and in that space is just really important.
Yeah, I can't say it any better. Hey, we're the events people, and
Hey, what am I gonna do?
don't get me going. No, just kidding. But because you hear so much. It's like, hey, go. Yeah, I just said I can't say it any better, but I will put a little bow tie on it. It's like, oh, go
Please.
figure. Someone that you want to give small, mid, majorly to your organization, go figure they might want to meet you in person. Oh, holy smokes. At an event. Oh, wow. Like, that's just so far reaching of a thought and a concept. Yes, because everyone's on their soapbox right now going, oh, you don't need that event. This, that, and the other. It's like, well, hold on. You do. It's like, you do. Is there a right way and a wrong way to go about it?
100%.
Absolutely.
For
That's
sure.
not the point. That's not the point. I told someone, I get in the comments as I tend to in LinkedIn, and it's been a lovely exercise for us, very cathartic as well. And I've learned a lot, and I have a very student mind with fundraising, and that's going to continue because I really, really enjoy the work. As you mentioned, you really
Yeah.
enjoy the work. We share that
It's so
very
fun.
much in common. I found someone going like, yeah, but you got to remember, you got to do it this way. Well, I wasn't presupposing that you do it the wrong way when you're engaging. We were talking about like corporate sponsors. I say, well, yeah, you need to do it the right way. I get that. And that information's out there. You know what
For
I mean?
sure.
It's like,
Google search. You got this.
yeah, it's good stuff. So no, I appreciate it. And I appreciate, so much honesty in the conversation. I really, really appreciate you. This is
Told
a great
you.
one.
I don't really have another speed.
No, it's good. It's refreshing, Leah. It's encouraging. It's all the above. We need it, and I want to keep having the conversation with you. So I appreciate you very much.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, Trevor, thank you so much. It was really a pleasure chatting with you. I've loved this was only the second time, but I've loved getting to know you and the company, and I'm very excited about working together. So, and I hope that you get to make it to Austin. I know you might not, but I can't wait to meet your team here. And I'm sure that we'll be bumping into each other soon.
we're going to be involved. Hey, we're going to put every which way in the show notes how folks can reach out to you
Okay, please.
and connect with you. Yeah, and show you and your team some love on LinkedIn, the Better Unite website, a better conference. This episode will come out before the conference hits, and so we don't need to bug folks with all the details. It will be in the show notes. So do us a favor, everybody listening. Show Leya and her team some love on LinkedIn. Let her know that you listened to the episode and check them out because they're doing amazing work. Can't thank you and your team enough. Appreciate you.
You, Trevor. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
How do you find the major donor? And one of the first big things that you do is you do research on them and you try to find out. But part of what you're trying to figure out too is what's their personality profile. Keep in mind that distinctive though is the bottom of the funnel is a planned gift. Somebody's got to die to make it. Nobody's signing up and raise that gift.